Welcome to Tech at Lunch, the podcast that satisfies your hunger for all things tech while you enjoy your midday meal. So grab your sandwich, tune in, and let's dig in.
Hello, I'm Nick.
Hello, I'm Edward.
And hey, we don't have John this week. Had a kind of a little emergency that he had to deal with. So we'll catch him around next time. But while we're waiting on him to come back, we decided to deviate just a smidge from our bread and maintenance side of the house and kind of step back into the cybersecurity realm here. And we started talking earlier about cybersecurity recommendations and additive manufacturing, and that's something that we want to kind of pin on. We were talking about it, just between the two of us, that we really haven't hit that point yet. We hit your mitigation, we hit your risks, and we hit your, how to help with some awareness topics. But we never hit with, and I know we hit some recommendations in there during the mitigation phase, but I don't think we really kind of dove too deep into some of those topics. And that's kind of what we want to do today. So we want to talk about, any recommendations that people may have for for the cyber side of the house. And, Ed, when you start thinking about, recommendations and stuff like that, your mind might be going the same place I am, but what are you thinking?
Oh, I would say the very first thing I would do is ensure that you do not have any default passwords configured on any of your devices that connect to the internet.
You mean password 123 ain't gonna work?
That or a manufacturer's password,
the default.
Admin password,
yeah,
or admin 123 or whatever. I would verify that those things have been changed. I would say one of the other things I would recommend is that whatever devices that you are allowing to connect to your network, you would understand those MAC IDs.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe document that somewhere so you know what normally is supposed to be connecting. And then I would say maybe another thing is quarterly or even more than that, change your passwords.
Yeah, I think the 90-day rule for passwords works. I know I'm kind of guilty of sometimes not doing that on personal passwords, but I know like work events, work passwords and stuff like that, I do change them. Because it's kind of required. However, we all got to get better at it. And like you said, the understanding what MACs you have on your network is absolutely paramount. When it comes down to that, and if you can, I highly recommend to hard IP all of your devices. Make an IP tree, where it kind of talks about, here's the IP address and my host name for each one of my devices, and y'all go in and rename your phones to what they are. Also, do a host name rename on your laptops, so it's not like Windows, or like Windows NT 10.4, or Windows Home or Untitled, because the thing is all we have to do is spoof your IP address, and on your network, never know I'm there. So make sure you keep an IP or, IP tree written down on a sheet of paper someplace where it's not accessible by others. Keep it on your phone, keep it on wherever you can get to it pretty quickly to see if you're at risk of an incident. Just for your own personal well-being. But that's just, my thought is to always kind of know, like what Ed said, know what's there. And if you don't know what's there, you're kind of freaking shooting yourself in the foot.
And then to follow up on that, then that's where you would start setting up whitelists and blacklists. Mm-hmm. Or you can just set up a whitelist and everything else is not allowed.
Right.
So you don't have to have two lists. You can just do one list, and anything that's not in that white list is not allowed to access your network. Other thing I would look at, and I would highly recommend, is segmentation. So I would definitely have a guest network, but a guest network that is segmented from your personal network. I would also segment if I have anything that I'm doing as far as gaming that would have its own network that's been subnetted. So everything needs to be on its own subnet. So segmentation with subnetting.
Yeah.
And then I would have anything that I have that I'm doing, any type of, say, work or anything that's dealing with something that I need to make sure that it stays secure or stays not in the public domain. I would also have a segment for that, so with its own subnet.
Now, you know, we started talking about this, the subnetting and whitelisting and stuff like that. And y'all at the office, you know, in your locations, if you're doing this, if you're doing additive manufacturing at, you know, home or in a manufacturing sense, they're two different, you know, barrels of truth here. Because if you're in a manufacturing sense and you're on the shop floor or stuff like that, you have or should have firewalls in place and segmented firewalls and network rules and stuff like that. If you're at home, set up something called pfSense or set up something like a firewall that you can look at. You may not have all the controls you would have, you know, in a manufacturing environment. You may not have everything that normal people would, that you would have if you had the ability to run, you know, network cables in your walls and, you know, set everything up that way. But you can still take a default router that you get from AT&T or anybody like that, and you can configure a guest network on it. You know, so you keep their traffic separate from yours, and you can set up, you know, use limits, you know, on it. But you know that, or you know, that's if that's what's, you know, the way you want to go about it. You can also go into the Ubiquiti world and transmit everything off of it, and from that to a router on the other end. You know, that's more than okay. You know, more than usable. If you're in a manufacturing environment, definitely VLAN out all your equipment. Every single piece of your equipment should be on its own VLAN, especially if you're running multiple like Stratasys machines doing different things, or different other printers doing different things. Segment them off. You know, hey, I've got, you know, a set of DLP machines, or I've got a set of resin machines that require network access, or I've got a set of FTF machines, you know, that you're working with, or, you know, any of the other type of additive, you know, side of the house. You know, it's, you know, separate those by via their own VLAN. And then once you VLAN those off, then segment each machine from itself.
So just to follow up on what Nick was talking about, if you're deciding to use your service provider or your ISP, what they call a modem, basically a modem / switch, what I would recommend is you can do that, but I would recommend connecting a physical, I would say, managed switch. Mm-hmm. That gives you a little bit. You can use pfSense because this is probably one of the standards. You can use Ubiquiti, but there are other brands out there that you can use. But the important part is that you have a physical device now that's in between your modem / switch that connects to the outside world, so your DMZ. Mm. So you allow that device to be the DMZ. Then from there, you actually have the first point of entry into your network. With a managed switch, you can do the things that we were talking about. Set up VLANs, you can segment networks, set up whitelists, only allow certain web services to run that are required. These are some of the things you can do. But the benefit of that, now I can connect another wireless access point, which is the wireless access point to my actual home network. So that those are some of the benefits you can have by physically setting up a device, because that's more, it takes a little bit more to get into a managed switch, mm-hmm. as opposed to an unmanaged switch or a wireless access point.
Like I use the Ubiquiti line of products. Mm-hmm. That is my personal bet. Use, you know, Ubiquiti at home, Cisco at work. However, Ubiquiti is slowly but surely taking over the stock that is available for Cisco, just because of what it is, ease of use. You know, it's all done by your phone, done by your laptop. It's all cloud based. It's great. You know, it's a great piece of kit. You know, the thing is if it's not used properly, it could become a hindrance. Same thing as Cisco. Cisco, you do something wrong, and guess what? No one has access now. So, are we saying that, take your entire network and block it out and make it, an immovable force? Not really, but it definitely helps. Protect what you need to have protected. And it's like if you start talking about, say shop floor segmentation. Shop floor segmentation is a totally different animal. When you're talking about that, I'm going to have a firewall for each individual cell that I'm working in. And you can break those down. Okay, cool. I've got 3 cells building this, 2 cells building this, 2 cells building this, and that could be of, say, 4 printers. So you have one firewall over 4 printers in each individual area. Then only certain, members of your staff have access through that one firewall to deal with that set of 4 printers. That's always one way of knocking it down, of where you have pure segmentation of where people aren't working on stuff that they shouldn't be working on. However, I also believe in the fact that if I have a stack of machines and they're caged off in their own protective, bubble, then they have their own laptop or desktop that's running slicer software and software to that machine that could be pulled from the intranet. At that point, everything is through the intranet, and somebody has to drop that file through the internal firewalls to a software repository inside the production environment for somebody to pull through that firewall down to that particular node. Because everything should be its own node, and everything should be its own node in the chain. That's how I look at it.
So another thing that I would strongly advise is firmware updates. Mm-hmm. Ensure that you keep your firmware updated on all devices that connect to your network, and actually the modem / switch that is normally provided by the ISP. Later we'll get into some solutions to that. And then also I would update wireless access points and so forth with firmware. Keep in mind though, when you do these things, make sure that you make a backup, so that if something is not compatible during the firmware update, that you're able to get back to a working system.
Yep, had that same problem. I've had that problem with my equipment. Still, to this day, have that current problem I'm fighting through. So, but, that's only because there was a slight jumble in the problem. It's like, for example, on my 3D printers, I run Clipper, and Clipper requires routine updates. It also requires routine updates to the OS level for the OS level to work with the application level, or the application layer. So sometimes, like the other day, my entire system decided to, say, nope, I'm not doing that no more, and stop printing completely. So, however, that's only because of a bad load from, through the package repository. However, if I wouldn't have caught it, I'd have had, multiple type of defects, through my system and stuff like that. But the thing is, it also opened me up for any type of impact. However, everything that I'm pulling, and which you should only pull if you're doing anything in a printing environment, should all be through GitHub or an SVN. If you're pulling software into a repository, it should all be through SVN, source control. Because SVNs and GitHubs and stuff like that, you can get GitHub for companies, and it's all screened. GitHub screens all of that. Why use your own equipment if you don't have to? If you can't afford that equipment, if you're a new startup, or if you're a home-based company or something like that, use the software that's provided for you by the big three. Google, Amazon, a couple other ones, right? Or Google, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, the big three. However, because their software is already provided for you, and GitHub is not directly part of Google, Microsoft, or Apple, it's a cross-compatible application. They are the biggest name when it comes down to SVN right now. Unless you're using like a Jira backend or something like that, or a Confluence or something like that. If you are, hey, you know what? 100% backing you on that. And you're using, Jarvis, what is it, Jeeves? I think it's Jeeves now. and other types of deployment apparatuses. If you're using that, hey, I'm all for it. Keep it coming. If you're getting into Kubernetes and stuff like that, Kubernetes clusters and Kubernetes deployments, then hey, I'll back you 110%. But those pull from a GitHub or a source control system that will scan that hardware and that software for you, and it does scan STL files. So it's, hey, I'm not going to pull anything unless it's part of my GitHub. They scan it going in and coming out, and everything's out as a zip file. Everything is single file in, zip out. So always use your source controls. Source control is a saving grace when it comes down to understanding what packages you have on your machines. You should always know kind of what packages are available, I would think, on your machines. At least that's my standpoint. I could be wrong. But that's just what I believe in, is you should know all your packages, you should know where your packages are coming from. And your package manager should always be coming from a source control repository. One of the big ones on Linux or GitHub or one of its affiliates.
So another thing I would do is you can also adjust your Wi-Fi footprint. So you can say that I only want this footprint to be this amount. So instead of broadcasting, say 20 foot outside of your residence, you can clip that and keep that inside the residence. It's probably, in my opinion, it's not that much more to use mobile outside if you have to. I would, or if you're using it outside and you are using it as a point of entertainment, I would even, make that bubble smaller. The smaller your footprint, the less of an attack surface you have, because there are several applications that you can use across all platforms, Android, across Linux, Windows, across Apple products, iOS, that use apps to sweep and search for Wi-Fi access points. So they're looking to find entry points into your network. So if you make your footprint smaller, in a sense, it's harder for that person to sit out in their from the street corner and try to sniff your wireless access point and search for vulnerabilities.
Now, why wouldn't you just hide your access point name?
You could, but it still doesn't hide the footprint.
Right.
So it hides the name, not the network.
Mm-hmm.
So I still can, from the street corner, if I know that there's an access point somewhere, I don't care. It doesn't matter if it has a name or not. It just matters from the point of view that there is a network there. From there, I can use other techniques to discover the name. I can use dumpster diving and things like that. If you were a target that was interesting enough so that I could get an entry point in sometime into your network. Sometimes it's not about where they enter. The entry point is just a portal to get somewhere else.
Yeah. So, when you start talking about, wireless activity and stuff like that, I'm a big person on hardline. I like my stuff at somehow hardline. However, when we start talking about wireless activity, what type of, say, security are you looking for? WPSK? Or what type of authentication, secret key, or anything like that are you looking for?
If it was me, my system, I would have a system that where your phone, it was something you have, so something you are and something you have in particular. I would have my network, so once you entered my zone, I would recognize the device because it's in a whitelist, and then that whitelist would say, hey, either CAPTCHA, or I would use some type of two-factor authentication to verify that person, whether it is you enter a code or something, but you can only gain access once you're in that area. So I would actually make some type of tethered system with your mobile phone that's been allowed inside of the whitelist. And, you wouldn't have to do it each time you connected to the network, but each time you entered into the network. So if I was accessing the network or after I did all of the authentication, then I'm good as long as I'm in the network. But as soon as I leave the bubble or that footprint for that wireless access point, then I'm automatically disconnected. And I have to do that re-authentication each time that I leave and re-enter into that network.
Now, when you talk about that, that's kind of like geofencing.
Correct.
It's the basis of geofencing. And geofencing is a great tool. Geofencing is great if you're building, and this goes to, how I'm going to protect, apps in the workplace. Inside my workplace, I'm going to set up a geofence. So my apps that I give you for my workplace will not work once you leave my geofence. You cannot get back in my network unless you have a VPN set up. And only certain people really need a VPN set up that have to actually do, day-by-day operations. That's the one thing that that kind of drives me nuts about certain things. Is I get that people work from home, however, they should not be using VPN. Some of these guys, they don't need it. If you don't have a job that requires you need access to email and stuff like that. Cool, you got an OWA for that. You go through the internet. You don't need a two-factor authenticated freaking VPN to access files and servers and stuff like that. I think if you're not a job that requires it, you shouldn't have it. And I think everything else should be whitelisted. Other than that, you can go through OWA. You can file whatever you need in OWA and do it on the machine that I give you. However, if you need to email to somebody, you have the right to email. If you need, if you need to have a VPN, sure, set it up for you. However, I don't think that it should be on every single machine. Just it's reducing your impact.
Yeah, and then I would say that probably just to get close to wrapping up, probably some of the other things to do is just common sense things. When you have guests, ensure that the guests are connected to the guest network. When the guests leave, those devices should be purged from your system. Do not retain those devices. Once the time frame is over, that can be something that you can do manually, and just say, "Hey, forget these devices."
Most machines you can do that automatically now.
Yeah, you can do it so automatically work too. But the only reason I say, I think unfortunately sometimes we rely too much on systems that do things automatically. And if it's some compromise to that system, then if you don't periodically do a spot check, then you can find yourself after the fact that you've been compromised. If at least you check in like you do with your passwords and you change them every 90 days, at least if you're verifying your network at least. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to do it once a month just to verify what's on your network, what's new in the range of your network.
Well, and that's the thing about, for example, that I like about Ubiquity is Ubiquity will send you a text message or notification when something's on your network that's not supposed to be there. It says, "Hey, this guy's new. Do you approve of him being here?" Okay, yeah, I know who it is. And it'll kind of let you know what it is and stuff like that, and also the range of IP address you're using anyway. So you definitely have those machines out there that will tell you, "Hey, I've got something new on here." And it's like if you start talking about in a manufacturing environment, you start really getting into the fact that if you don't have the right MAC address, you don't belong on my network. And from the time I set your equipment up, I have your MAC address. So you're already in my whitelist. You're already allowed to connect on my network. However, if you have a personal phone and you're at work, you can't connect the guest network. However, that should still be moderated. Because you should not be able to get to a internal system through the guest network, even if it is through a web browser. So, for example, somebody should not have a phone connected to a guest network for your company that can connect back to your company's OWA. You don't want to have that loop. I get it. People leave phones, laptops, whatnot at home. However, it's not very hard to get back in your car and go back and go get it, or go out to the vehicle and pick it up. Give them a few minutes, go back and grab it. You should not be able to go in a circle, because the thing is that's telling me that you're allowing that for vulnerability. That means you're now asking somebody, they can hook up their personal PC and access your guest network by going through your OWA and other things that can now expose your entire company to whatever that computer's infected with. Like, because we don't scan every computer that we hook up to our network. We should. And, that's another thing. If you hook up anything to your environment, scan it first. So you hook up a Raspberry Pi that's going to run a 3D printer, or hook up a printer for that matter to your network, scan it first. Scan it for vulnerability. Make sure the thing's locked down. Make sure it doesn't have anything available. If anything, if you have some of these machines that you don't want connected to Wi-Fi, take the Wi-Fi card out of them. So now they'll only work via thumb drive or via network card, to make sure that they're not reaching through certain networks in certain places where they shouldn't be, and everything's connected on its own environment. If you look at a cell of printers or something like that, you should see a center switch with cables going to each and every printer, with one single cable hooking up to the PC in the center that's running a dual node. That machine is only for that environment, only be allowed to work in that environment. However, there's still a master line running from that center switch back to the firewall that will allow you to go out and grab whatever you need to from the intranet. And the thing is, above that level, everything is severed until you go and pull from your main firewall, only aligned to your intranet, and only allows intranet traffic. It doesn't allow in outside traffic, only intranet traffic. Which means now I can pull stuff from a company hosted SVN server, unless I allow specific rules through that firewall to allow me to an SVN, which means I'm going to GitHub or whatnot. However, your company should have their own GitHub, so you should be able to point it to that through your intranet. It's still part of your intranet. It's just locally hosted. It's just cloud hosted through their particular environments. That's how I would break it down as far as coming into a shop floor sense. To protect that with using your Guest Connect, because Guest Connect is one hell of a vulnerability. You don't know what's connected to it. You don't know how it's connected. You're not going through it, but you're opening it up to be able to connect to things on your network. And with that, you still have machines that are connected to the switches that allow that traffic through it. If you really wanted to separate, I would put my Guest Connect and my production network or office network on two different switches completely, and I wouldn't even VLAN it, because then you can't hop over. There's no way. That, and I'd block that entire subnet. If I knew I had a subnet for this many Guest Connect networks, I'd whitelist that. I'd blacklist that entire subnet. So now you can't get into my network.
Yep. I think the other thing to consider is, I know we all are busy, in today's work environment, but I would also consider maybe subscribing to SAN so that you can get, vulnerability alerts. Or if you don't have time for that, maybe you look at getting some type of vulnerability scanner that can do a scan of your network just to see. And then, like I said, the one other thing I would highly recommend is back up all configurations for printers. Back up make images of all of your hardware devices not hardware devices, like your PCs or your laptops. I would make a backup for that, because there is even air gap systems get compromised, so it's very highly likely that you will be compromised sometime in the future. But if you just wipe that system out and take the image and dump the image back in there. Same thing with your printers. Make backups of all the configurations and files that are pertinent for that particular printer. Store them somewhere that is not connected to the internet. Period. So it's a concept of cold or hot site. So we'll say it this way: I would have one set of all my images on one drive that I am highly confident in, that is SSD, and I would put it in maybe a safe deposit box, and then I would have one on site that I can pull from just in case.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. And that's hot and cold is definitely something I think that's forgotten about. You have the primary backup situation going on where it's cut over, non cut over. However, when it comes down to backups, offsite cold store, cold shot backups, it's great. I think you got companies out there like Iron Mountain that'll do it for you. Hold all that for you. Just in case something does happen. I'll say this: if you're still putting stuff on tape drive, we may not have enough conversation. But
although they're gonna be it's very unlikely they'll be compromised.
Right, exactly. If you're gonna have a nuclear war, and guess what's gonna remain? Tape backups.
Yeah.
But like you said, put them someplace where they can't be compromised. If you have to back up, your laptops on a routine basis, especially if you're doing it like in a manufacturing environment or an office environment or something like that. Keep those laptops overnight from your employees. Back them up onto a NAS that is not connected to your network.
And the reason for having the hot and the cold site is not necessarily having two copies in two different places. It's in the event of natural disaster, the house burned down or something.
Right.
I mean, at least you have insurance to cover the hardware and recover new printers. But if you had certain configurations set up for a specific part that you're printing that's part of your business portfolio, then you would not want that to be at the place if something happened like a fire or a flood or something of that nature.
Right. And, with that, I would want to do a possible cloud backup solution. Because I would want to do an on-prem backup solution and then partner with AWS or Azure or one of those guys to back up all of my company backups onto a cloud environment that is constantly replicated. Something that's maybe not in the U.S. I would say, okay, cool. I would rather have, or if I do a dual cloud backup solution, I'll have one cloud backup solution in the U.S. and I'll have it replicated to another cloud solution somewhere in, like Lithuania or something like that. Or Sweden, where things are protected a little bit better. Or but the thing is, it's less likelihood that something's going to happen to them.
Right.
If that's the way that you want to go, the cloud solution is one heck of a backup way. And I think that it's also a way that's not, I guess you could say, seen that much, I guess, and people kind of look down upon it. I don't like using cloud connected printers. I think that's just a complete joke. However, I think they some people, your regular homemakers, they may have their place. However, for industrial applications, I think cloud is kind of a cloud connected printers where you can only use their software in the cloud is a joke. That needs to be on a local machine where you can do everything you need to do and back up your STLs to the cloud at that point.
I guess the cloud is a really good solution too. Like I said, the only reason I lean more toward having a physical backup of both is because there is one thing is air gapped. It is an air gap system, as long as it's not connected to the internet. The other thing is although clouds are replicated, and although clouds are probably one of the most securest things that you can have, because we have other technologies that are working with those cloud-based systems, that the reality is that anything that is connected to the internet is susceptible to some type of compromise because of nation states and because of hacker networks and so forth. So, not to scare anybody, it would be wise to have the cloud base so that you can readily just hey, I can go right now. I don't have to drive somewhere to get something.
Right.
But would also be wise to have it just as a fail-safe. In the event that is, one of those, 0-day type of events.
That's something that definitely is a big deal. 0-day incidents. I think that's something that is definitely one of those that's like, oh yeah, we need to worry about that. Now there's almost another way of doing things. If you can pull the hard drives on your machines, buy backup hard drives for all of your machines and load the hard drives prematurely, and keep them in anti-static bags. Keep them in a safe someplace. So if you do have a 0-day incident, all now you have to do is just pop the hard drives into your machines and update. And then you're back up and running, within minutes, but also keep an application backup folder, inside that same safe that has the hard drive full of your applications on it, and all your current working documents. And, that's the thing. And also, if you are using a cloud attached 0-day solution, you can always go back and pull your files that you've been working on, through an SVN someplace that's completely locked down and, out of touch. Because most SVNs, the good thing about SVNs is they use OTP. So it's, most of them do, at least. I know GitHub uses OTP, where it's like a TFA, two-factor authentication system. So it is protecting your data at all costs and at all levels, which is pretty nice. Very few breaches in their application software subset. But, the good thing is I think that, everything that we're talking about is presentable or preventable, I guess you could say, if I'm not mistaken. But it's, you've heard us talk about, the awareness side of the house. And most of this comes from the awareness. I think that if we can build an awareness program, that balances the fact of, fear mongering and, usage, I think we're on the right path here.
Yeah, and I would say, and just to get close to wrapping this episode up, the main thing is being diligent. You have to pay attention to things that are connecting to your network in particular. Also, you have to know what files you're running on your system. So these are some things you should already know. Mm-hmm. As long as you do those type of things, I think that at least you're better off than most.
Yeah. Don't download nothing you shouldn't be downloading. Yeah. We've seen that, I think, many times. Is just stop downloading crap. If it looks good, sounds good, and they say download it, guess what it probably is? Too good to be true. Me and Ed have worked in the manufacturing environment a little bit long enough where if it says, oh, this will change your processes, don't download it, because it ain't going to change your process.
Well, it may change, just not the way you want it to be changed.
Right. You may go in reverse. So that's always something is don't fall for the fool's gold. And that one thing is, I'll tell you this right now, you got so many people out there, non-state actors that are trying to go after some of these manufacturing environments, even smaller companies, mom and pop shops, that to steal what they want to steal and put on Alibaba. It's one of those things of where, don't fall for it. Mm-hmm. Don't fall for it. If you back it up with us, it's 100% guarantee. Do you know where that's going? And always check the page sources, please. Like, if you see something that says, hey, look, I'm TLS and all this stuff, and you don't see the SSL icon in the upper left-hand corner, no, please don't do that. Or at least check the page source. They may have had an issue with their certificate, which sometimes happens. But check the page source. And if you're looking at the reviews on certain pieces of application and it seems like it's the same person, just with a different name, it probably is. I couldn't tell you. You've probably seen it, Ed, that you look at some of these reviews and it's like, oh, this is great. great it is. Best I've ever used. It's all within the first, month.
Yeah.
And it's all the same guy, usually, but with a different name.
Yeah. Part of those social engineering techniques.
Yeah, or it's just, flat out people lying through their teeth and, paying for reviews, which, all right, you want to pay for reviews, be my guest. However, that tells me your application is completely untrustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it says we've updated our application, you're still at version 1.1, you didn't update anything. You did a minor revision. You have to be at least 2.0 or more. So understand the difference between major revision and minor revision. That's something that I think we'll probably do an episode on, is talk about revision history and SVN, where we kind of talk about what is a minor release and what is a major release, just so people can understand what that means. But I don't know. That's just me. I'm kind of anal when I see release numbers.
And I would say, also look at your equipment. If your equipment is 15 years old, maybe it's
time to send it out to pasture.
Or get something. If your network equipment is 15 years old, maybe it's time to, invest in getting some new equipment.
Yeah, and it's really not that expensive. I'll tell you one thing, freaking Ubiquiti is great. Low cost, low overhead, easy use type of equipment here. You don't need to be all certified and, like Cisco to be able to use a darn thing. You can fall on your thing, and I guarantee you I could teach my family how to use it. And my family is not very tech friendly. They're like anti-tech. They understand it, but they're terrible at it. So I don't know if you would call that anti-tech, but it'd be like just anti-learn. But that's just here nor there. I kind of hope for the best for people when it comes down to equipment. If you have any questions on that type of stuff, definitely reach out. We can definitely point you in the right direction, or at least into a direction, I should say. That makes sense. So, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up there. I just want to say thank you. Last numbers I checked, I think we're at 1,735 listens so far. Y'all, we're having fun with it. We're growing. We enjoy it. Go check out the YouTube channel. There's some stuff going on there. Or soon will be. We got a pretty good project coming. That we think that everybody will be interested in. Other than that, also, I guess we were talking about earlier. You never know. You might see us doing something crazy. We're thinking about starting up a secondary fun YouTube channel called Vulcan RA Eats. We go out and try different restaurants and bring back different takeout and kind of see how it is and compare them one to another. So if you're ever interested in that, go over there, get ready for that. Stand by and see how things go. I appreciate every single one of y'all. Bottom of my heart, we wouldn't be doing this without y'all. We wouldn't be traveling without y'all. Wanting to learn some of this stuff. We're definitely going to be possibly going up to South Tech up in Greenville, South Carolina. Up there for that event. Go talk there. So if we can do up there and talk to Fanuc, and a couple of those guys what they do, and see if we can get them involved. But other than that, we enjoy you. We're glad you're here. I'm gonna turn over to Ed for parting words, and y'all do.
Just like to say the same thing that Nick said. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate people listening to us. If there are questions or if there are requests, we're open to questions and requests. If you guys would like to meet up when we go to Greenville, we'll be open to maybe meeting some of you guys and have maybe a meet and greet, or maybe we'll just meet at the convention and see some of the people that are listening to us, and maybe y'all can see us. But we do appreciate all of the support, and stay tuned.
There you go. Have a good one.
That's all for this episode of Tech at Lunch. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for this tech-filled lunch break. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to subscribe on all channels. And also, you can find us on YouTube under Vulcan Technology Solutions. and join us for our next episode, which gets published every Wednesday at 8 a.m. All right, y'all. Have a good one. See you later.